So the two things that are on the list for sure that I was just looking up.
Oh, two
One-
things ought to be a great show.
It's probably enough for us, honestly.
I can't wait to see where we go because I have no idea. This is the intro part where I just tell people that.
We're already starting?
Well, no, I mean, it's rolling.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is
Okay.
you were in charge of coming up with a rundown.
You better start the show before you start yelling at me because
Okay.
we need that time.
I'm not going to yell. I don't yell.
You sometimes yell.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Time Expired. I'm Dave Hovde.
I'm Richard Gearhart.
And we're back yet again. And I'd love to tell you what's in the show, but it's Richard's chance to be the producer today.
I was the producer last time. I think it should go 3 times for you, 1 time for me, 3 times for you.
Wow. Okay. And the rationalization would be
I just don't want to
because you're Richard Gearhart. Okay, yeah. I get it. So where are we starting then?
We're going to start with a couple of things that people have brought up over the last 3 episodes multiple times. So number 1 is transmitter.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We've.
So we should just update people on that.
Okay. So we had an old transmitter that was held together almost literally with tape and baling wire.
Yeah.
And our engineering team has been fabulous over the years.
Yeah.
We had essentially one of the last functioning transmitters of the type we were using.
Yeah.
And I think we found one other piece to kind of keep us going.
We were like looking for parts and it was all sort of, bandaged together, and finally it gave up the ghost. But of course, just as we had purchased a new transmitter,
Right.
So the transmitter had arrived on scene, and then that one gave up. But it takes about a month or 6 weeks to get everything together operating. Exactly.
Yeah, and this, by the way, is not either of our main areas here, but we do hear what happens. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, maybe transmitter isn't your top priority. No, it is.
It is a top priority.
And here's why. We went from everybody getting their TV through antennas to cable and then kind of internet, and now it's actually gravitating back toward
free over the air.
And there's some things that our corporation is actually promoting, these new boxes that will be able to take your antenna signal
and send them to everything in your house. It's called Tableau, yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to hear more about that through our corporation, and it's actually really cool technology. So
the weird part though is that I don't think young people really realize that it's free and it's on your TV. And I was just always just messing around with my TV. So I've got a smart TV, Roku TV, like lots of people do, and mine actually has. One of the selections is local TV. And local TV is good enough now that, that with the digital signals, we send out even a grid of what's coming up. So
yeah. No, it's great.
Once that transmitter works again, you guys will be in. And we are transmitting. We should say we are transmitting. We do have like a backup transmitter too, but I think it transmits at about 30 or 40% of a normal transmitter. So lots of people are still getting it, but if you're kind of on the fringes of the area, you're not.
And one of the challenges in our area, in say the Midwest or areas that are flat, you put up one antenna at the highest spot,
and it goes everywhere.
It goes everywhere because you don't have shadowing areas. And there's also a difference between digital broadcasting and analog broadcasting, where digital's it's ones and zeros. So if you're not getting them, you're not getting it. You don't get a partial. You just it kind of drops out pretty evidently. Yeah.
Okay, so the other topic that keeps coming up is news coverage and how we decide what we cover, whether or not we should cover national news, why do we cover the lottery, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll be honest with you. This is my opinion, and by the way, not affiliated with the station in any way. Yeah, I'm tired of the lottery story. I'm tired of it because it always goes before our weather chats or before weather. And there's only so many times you can opine about winning it or what would you do with it or something like that. And so one of the comments was, do we get paid by the lottery?
And of course
we do not. We have no affiliation with that. In fact, we don't do paid news at all. So
and I could jump into this huge lecture that I give my students at Cal Poly, but there are basic types of approaches to journalism, right? So one of them would be government-supported journalism. We're not into that in this country at all. Obviously, freedom of press, et cetera. So what we're left with as the sort of the most effective method of journalism is for-profit journalism. It's a business, right? So the TV station is not just a place to give out news. It is. That's one of the things that we do. It helps us meet our public service requirements for being licensed by the FCC, but it is a business, right? And so one of the reasons that we do news is because it attracts viewers. We sell advertising to the number of eyes that are watching. So I do think it's a little bit funny, and this is sort of where I'm a little bit opinionated as well. We're choosing the things that you're going to watch, or the most people are going to watch, right? Because
Yep.
we're not driving away viewers, or we wouldn't be making any money, and the business wouldn't work. So, I mean, obviously, we're trying to find things that the vast majority of our audience members want to watch.
Well, I think this week was a really good example of where the news of the world became so important that it had to usurp some local stuff. We didn't have a compelling local narrative. There were no active fires. Now, there were significant stories that ran high in news blocks, but the Hamas attack in Israel is a big thing. And what we typically do, if there's an overriding national or international story, we find a local angle. Kimberly Cruz did a really nice job. She found some local people who were affected by it over at Cal Poly, and I thought she did a really nice job doing that.
And sometimes we turn to kind of regional stories for that reason as well. So we were featuring today a family that had been vacationing in Israel when this all happened, and then their kind of job, the big task that they had getting back. And so once they got back to LAX, then they were covered as a news story as well.
Yeah, and this story is just beginning, so I imagine we'll be finding more elements moving
but
forward.
like this topic is really complicated. So it's not, I mean, people want to sit at home and say, oh, well, how come you're covering the lottery? How come you're covering the library? How come you're covering? But it gets very complicated very quickly when we're discussing it. So traditionally in legacy media like television stations and newspapers, we have people who ultimately decide, right? And those are the gatekeepers of information. Like we have assignment editors at television stations, news directors, et cetera. We actually have editorial meetings a lot of times, so more than one person is deciding what we cover. But social media is another example of you get fed a lot of information on your social media feeds based on algorithms, which are based on what you're searching for and what you're reading already. And so this is just a really I just wanted to point out that it's not just that easy. Like we should stop covering lottery stories. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, and there are some changes coming to how we're going to be doing journalism coming up, which we can't really reveal to you yet. It's part of a launch that we're doing. But covering each community is important, and that's part of this new thing that we'll be doing, and you'll be finding out about it soon. And so the emphasis is always local, but again, there are overriding factors. And I think for me, one thing that I've always liked about, especially our hour-long show, it's enough time to do the local news of the day and then do a digest of everything else. Yes, there are 24-hour news stations. Of course, they've come under some fire for them being too partisan one way or the other, depending on which one you watch. That's one reason I've always kind of liked local news, the 6 to 7 o'clock hour, whatever hour it is in the market that people are watching. I like the longer show. I've always liked the longer show because it can dive into certain things, and then you have a few minutes to go into depth on something because you have the full hour, not the half hour that you have to parse out into sports and weather and everything else.
Which brings up another, point that we always talk about or that we sort of deal with here at the TV station, which is somebody will write something like, why are you doing national news in your hour-long newscast from 6 to 7? Because you just got done with national news and it was just on from 5:30 to 6. And we've all seen it. Well, no, we haven't all seen it.
Exactly.
Like all the viewers didn't. That particular viewer saw it because that particular viewer might watch news that long. But but every viewer has a different approach to their consumption of news, and they might not be watching. I think probably very few people start watching our news at 4 p.m., watch the 4 p.m. show, then the entertainment show, then the 5 p.m. show, then the nightly news,
my
and
goodness.
the 6 p.m. show. I mean, I don't think very many people do that. So,
and if you do, thanks.
Yeah, but it's not really fair to say, well, you just had national news on, because some people only watch for 30 minutes of that 6 o'clock show.
And it's interesting to note as well that national news, they do a Western edition, it's not live all the time. It will be live
if need
when
be, yeah.
events
Yeah.
warrant. So sometimes during the 6 o'clock news or whatever show that we're in, if there are new developments, we're still the first to, even if they're international developments, we can still be the first to bring them. So being on and being on often has its advantages.
So that's another thing that's come up in a couple of different ways while we've been doing these so far limited episodes of the podcast is just really viewer comments, right? And so I think one of the things that has just cropped up in this conversation is that I think we get a lot of viewer comments, and viewers have this tendency to sort of think, whatever I'm doing at home, everybody else is doing the same thing, right? So other people are watching at different times, and so we can't just program the TV station for Bob, who watches 2 hours of news from 5 to 7.
And I would even argue that one of the things that makes it maybe the most difficult is when you try to please everyone, you are always alienating someone. And it's so true in weather. Like, if we say we're going to concentrate on Santa Maria or Paso Robles or somewhere, the more you zoom in, the more you leave out of the picture. And it is true of news as well. So we talk about hyper-locality. I think it vacillates during the show. I think you want to have that feeling that, okay, maybe if you're not in it today, or if you're not in the 4 o'clock news, maybe you're in the 6 o'clock news, or maybe you didn't make the survey that particular day, you're going to make it in the next day. We do not have any bias toward or against any individual community. Doesn't matter that this station happens to be located in San Luis Obispo. We are the Central Coast NBC and CW affiliate for the entire area. We take it seriously. We always have, and we don't exclude anyone.
Which is another thing that kind of crops up, I think, with viewer comments. And we do. You can tell we get a lot of viewer comments. I'm feeling a little defensive, I guess, today about viewer comments. But the other thing I think that people have a tendency to do is when they comment, and it makes sense, right? Because by the time you have enough time, or you're angry enough, or there's something that's propelling you to look up the email address or the phone number, or figure out some way to comment. You're already kind of mad, right? And so we tend to get a lot of negative comments, as opposed to no one's who's super happy with the news or whatever happened is taking the time to look up the email address or whatever, right? So they tend to be negative, and I think also people tend to think the worst, right? So if there's an accusation, it's like, well, you guys just don't like, or obviously you have some sort of bias against, or you must be whatever, and it's always from a negative aspect. And I think that it's important to point out that this is our job, and we want to be successful, and we want people to watch as much as possible. So there are very few things where, if anything, that we approach from negative, we're just not going to do it. Right. Like, even if we accidentally leave somebody off, it's only because we're trying to get somewhere else. I mean, I just hope that people realize that most of the time decisions are made for a positive reason, not a negative reason. Yeah. But most of the comments come in for a negative reason, not a positive.
And the other thing too is it's very difficult for us to respond to every viewer concern, on Facebook or should they call the newsroom? By the way, that's where you're going to get the most interactive response, is if you actually get a manager or someone on the phone. And they will. If you have a concern, please, we answer the phone. But we have to keep moving.
Sometimes literally we answer the phone.
But we have to keep moving forward. I mean, that's the thing. And we can't grind, because there are a lot of folks who will not be satiated by whatever excuse you have either. Sometimes you're not going to like what's on the TV. Hopefully you'll like the next thing that's on TV.
And it's also worth pointing out that I think that people, that viewers think that we have some sort, that we're like omnipotent or something, like we know everything that's going on in the entire market. And we don't, right? So we might be covering a story because somebody happened to call and tell us, give us a tip.
A lot, often.
And then there's, people will say, well, how come you covered that pumpkin farm and you didn't cover the other 20 pumpkin farms that are in the area? Well, it's probably somebody went there, or somebody called, or somebody gave us a tip about, or that particular pumpkin farm's unique in some way. Yep. And we're not trying to exclude everybody else, but we obviously can't also feature every pumpkin farm, for instance, in the entire area.
Okay, so pretty dark episode so far.
I know. I was thinking that same thing.
I can help you, since we're on the topic of pumpkins. The kicker tonight The
Pumpkin spice latte. I have to admit that I've
Okay.
never even tasted pumpkin spice anything because all we do is talk about pumpkin spice from August to December.
So today's was kind of different. It was a pumpkin spice themed Letterman's jacket that you could get at. Do you recall the business? Was it Starbucks? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was not an attractive. Well, I'm no fashion plate guy, but I mean, it was sort of. I know it's supposed to be kind of pumpkin spice colored, but it came off more of a
somewhere between
like rose gold.
Yeah,
it was a weird color, and I get it. They don't care if they sell 100 of these things. They made it on TV to talk about pumpkin spice.
And I think that then after I was kind of making fun of it on TV, I started thinking about it. And a lot of the stuff they were featuring was because they'd been doing pumpkin spice for 20 years. So they were kind of looking back toward the early 2000s, late 1990s, and a lot of the stuff was about that time frame. And everybody was into Letterman jackets at the time.
Okay.
And I even have, it's one of my favorite KSBY swag that we sometimes get. We actually had a Letterman's jacket.
Did you really?
Yeah, it's kind of purple. It's a little bit odd too.
I think I've seen them. I think I've seen that. Yeah, it was probably late 80s, early 90s,
mid 90s.
Mid 90s. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think I've seen that. You know, going back to story selection, I'll say this because it's so true of this time of year all the way through Christmas, especially since Season of Hope is up again. You said today, and I almost laughed about it. You said it's only 2.5 months before the holidays.
Only.
Well, only. But what was interesting about that is that you and I have been here a while, and I've done news as long as you have, maybe even a little longer. No, about the same. You started at 19?
1990.
Okay.
And at 19 years old in 1990.
Okay, so I'm a little bit older than you, and I started like literally when I finished college. I did that in 3.5 years. So pretty much the same amount of time. I've seen every iteration of Halloween story, every iteration of Thanksgiving, and every iteration of Christmas-based stories too.
Yeah.
So we work with a lot of young journalists and young producers, and they get so excited. I mean, like the fair is another good example. Oh, are you excited about the fair? I will find it for the day or 2 or 3 I've got to go. It doesn't mean I don't love it. It just means for me, it's something I've done a lot. So I need to always find that new angle, that new something. So yeah, I laughed at the Letterman's thing for the pumpkin spice today because I hadn't seen it before. And I was very, very happy that there was some kind of new angle.
But you know, after this show, after this podcast, I'm going to go try pumpkin spice. Legitimately try pumpkin spice for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, because I never have. It's one of those things, right? You just get so sick of talking about it and hearing about it. I just haven't.
So what would be great is if you took your phone out and shot some video so that we can show that on maybe the next episode.
Oh, there you go.
So I thought of some ideas. And by the way, this is a good chance to like get you guys to give us some more ideas. I want to do like a secret top 10 list for you, okay? So I would come to you shortly before the show. I would give you a topic, but you'd have 5 minutes to complete the top 10 list.
I need more time to think than that.
No, but see, that's the problem. If I give you too much time, the top 10 list would be perfect. I'm not going to say, it wouldn't be a top 10 list that you couldn't escape out of, but like, let's say it was your favorite books. You're going to come up with your 5-minute list, and you're going to be able to come up with some. But you might panic.
I know, but see, I would rather think about that, especially like a list of books. I'd want to think about it because it's a reflection of me, right?
But it's for fun. It's not like the ultimate. And by the way, top 10 lists are baloney anyways. Your top 10 list is going to agree with anybody else.
Top 10 makes me just think about something else I should share about you on this podcast.
Well, you can't bring it up and not say it, so you might as well go. Go ahead.
I want you to explain though. So you have this unique approach to a rating system. So you'll walk through the newsroom and you'll say, on a scale of...
Sure.
So he never says on a scale of 1 to 10. No. What do you say? On a scale of...
17 to 136. And the reason you do that...
And you have to sort of think about like, okay, if I'm like at 50%, what's the 50% line between 17 and 136?
But here's why I do that, because especially with the young people in there. the engagement is instant.
Right?
Right?
You have to think. You're
It's like
wait, wait.
mathematical brain comes out, and then they're like, okay. And by the way, the first thing they do is not their personal assessment. It is figuring the
Right.
scale out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they, futz in their brain like, okay, I don't know. I guess I'm sublime today. So what number would that be?
87.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a really good scale.
But it's not always like 17.
So from 17 to 36, where are you today? What's your mood?
Honestly, or for the podcast?
Why don't you please lie to everybody? Tell everybody you're at a 36. I would say you're somewhere in the middle to lower, maybe lower end of the middle. Lower end, maybe lower end.
I am.
You're on the lower end.
Yeah. So remind me to explain that when we get to the very end of the show, which is your old when.
Okay.
We probably might be running out.
So
are you keeping track of time?
We'll wrap this up here pretty soon. So today, I had one of those days where I woke up, and you know me, I've been walking 5 miles every day. I usually golf and then walk 5 miles, and then I come in here. And the reason I do is mental health. I really think like sunshine, and I'm just trying to do whatever I can do to just stay positive and keep energy going. Today was one of those days where I didn't get up and golf. I had time on my hands, and I realized now it's 10:30. Now it's 11 o'clock. Well, 5 miles takes at least an hour 15 minutes. And I'm like, I'll just skip it. But I didn't. I didn't.
I was going to say, you're not a good skip it kind of person.
No, I did it. And I'm so glad I did it. So on that scale, did I say 17 to 36? Yeah. I'm a 32. I'm a pretty good mood. And somehow there's some circumstantial things going on in my life that should drag the number down a little bit. But the fact that I got out and did something today, even though I didn't want to, the fact that I overcame my own resistance.
But you're kind of you're always a glass half full person, or 3/4 full person, honestly.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I have my days.
I'm kind of a glass half empty, and it's got a crack in it. It's leaking. That's gotta be
time for a new glass.
Exactly. We are opposite in that aspect.
Okay. We promise the next episode
will be a little happier. It'll be
bigger.
I'm bringing us down today.
No,
that's why you should produce it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. This is reality. It's reality. It's just it's a snapshot. I think people are going to enjoy that. So you're old when.
I have been struggling this year getting back into my two job thing. So I've been enjoying summer vacation, which is kind of where I get my reset. But today, that's why, when you were saying I'm a little off today, I'm a little grumpy today. It's on Wednesday is my worst day. And so on Wednesday, I have class at 8. So I got to school at about 7:10, 7:15 this morning, getting ready for class. And I have class from 8 to 11. I've got a meeting from 11 to noon. I've got class from noon to 2, and I come straight here. So I don't even have like a break at all. And it's only Wednesday, so you don't have to feel sorry for me. But that has never in my life, and people ask me that all the time, has never bothered me. I've never really felt tired, no matter how much I work. Mm-hmm. And for the first time ever this year, I'm kind of feeling tired.
Mine's not really so much your old when, although I think it probably comes in. I've been, and there's some, I'm not going to talk about the circumstances going on in my life, but the thing that has bothered me recently is when people get upset with me for expectations they have and they've never told me about. You know what I mean? Like, well, you should have said this, or you should have called. Why didn't you call? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Do you want me to? Please tell me.
So don't you think this business, TV, is bad for that though? I mean, I think people have already sort of assessed us or anybody who's on TV ahead of time, so they kind of have a whole bunch of expectations that may or may not be accurate.
Yeah, that happens professionally, certainly, and I expect that professionally.
But in your personal,
when it spills over into the personal life, it's hard not to get short with people. Yeah. And the other thing too, and this is so true, like when I try to deal with people, okay, our schedules are crazy. I'm here at 2:00 and I really don't get home till like 12:15. So I'm here a lot. So I have to have personal conversations sometimes during the show. And there are days I'm in work mode. I'm not in that other mode. Like somebody asks, like, what shows do you like to watch? Nothing. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, nothing. This is can be an all-encompassing kind of job. And the last, say, month or so, it's been engaging, I guess is the positive way to say it.
It definitely has been engaging.
Yeah. All right. Wow, that's dark.
We're gonna be much happier next time around.
Yeah. But I mean,
I don't think we've been unhappy.
no, we're not on it. Look, I think it's one
We
of
just
the
haven't been as jovial.
I
as
think
usual.
the people out there need to know, like, you and I keep each other afloat. I mean, like, oftentimes I'll come in and I'll vent something on you with no preparation for you,
That is
and
true.
never asking, "How are you today?"
You know what happened?
But it's
Sometimes I feel like you've had part of that conversation actually walking in the door. Like you don't even start at the beginning sometimes.
oh, there's an active conversation in there all the time. It's just when does it open up to somebody else? But it is interesting. We have some new folks here, and I always have to be really careful. Like these people don't have, the lexicon to deal with
Right.
all of the baloney, and they have no idea what's going on. But unfortunately, you do.
We actually do have some pretty good new employees too.
Yeah.
Several of them were on the air for the first time today. So.
And it was cool. And just to wrap this up too, Kimberly Cruz, great reporter for us, ended yesterday.
Yeah.
And
Going on to bigger and better things, and
Yeah.
I'm excited for her. She's
Yeah.
gotten a good career move.
she did a really, really good job here at KSBY, and it was great to see her grow so quickly and
find some success.
And she was just so great on her departure. And that's how you know you've done well when your heart is in it. You have the emotional moments leaving. You know that you gave it your best, and it was good.
Yep.
It was good to see that. And honestly, I get a lot out of working with the young people for sure.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's it. So time has expired on this podcast. Remember, you can always send any of your ideas along to us in the comment section. We hope we have not bummed you out. If so,
You can comment on that too, and we'll
exactly.
That'll steer us in the right direction.
As always, complaints can be issued to Richard Gerhardt at ksby.com.
Of course they can.
Okay.
That was an odd one.